Yeah. I'm back again. I gotta keep it coming, man. I gotta keep it coming. Cause like I said, I've been away for a long time, man, and it's absolutely needed. Now we're going into the chapter of dealing with self-esteem and confidence. And what I see is disturbing online with a lot of men, a lot of men, a lot of issues with them having these types of perceptions of what they feel that how they're disenfranchised and the fact that there's a disconnect with the opposite sex and all these other things that are going on. And like I told you before, I'm here to lend my ear and to lend what I learned in my experience to trying to get men right. I don't care about nothing else. I'm not trying to go against other folks. That will come when I'm going to be critical of other people, other sexes. That'll come. But right now, the immediate is men and trying to get you all back on track. So, like I said, there's a lot of different things out there about men feeling disenfranchised, feeling like the world is against them. All these negative types of perceptions of what they feel is going on. And part of that, to me, really is attributed to of what you feel about yourself. What do you think that you can contribute? Who do you think you are? Are you a person that can stay by yourself? Are you happy by yourself? Because if you're not happy by yourself, you can't be happy out in this regular world. You absolutely can't. You have to be happy and content with yourself. If you're able to do that and you can look at yourself in the mirror and be able to say, you know what? I'm content with myself and I'm good, then that means that anybody else that comes around you should be good as well. You should be able to interact with them just as well. But there's an issue with the fact that there's a lack of confidence. And I start to think about what is it that can get you to a point where you start to retain or you start to build on confidence. You start to create confidence within yourself. And I try to think about what things that are tangible, not try to give you this holy guru stuff of you got to meditate and you got to, stand on water and you got to do all these different types of things. I'm trying to give something that's tangible. And the only thing I could think about that was tangible that can build up confidence and that you got to be willing to do. You have to be willing to try it, to experiment with it. Part of the issue is many men don't know how to deal with rejection. That's the problem. That's one of the biggest problems that you have. Rejection on every level. Rejection. If you start to feel any kind of rejection, boom, you start going into the swamps of sadness and, oh, the world is against you, woe is me, and all this other stuff. The world is about rejection, man. This is life, man. Life ain't fair. Life is absolutely not fair. It's not, you're not going to have all the things that are just handed out to you. Some people do get the things handed out to you, but if you don't happen to be that lucky person, then you got to work, you got to grind to get to your point. And a lot of it that you don't see that's happening is it's preparing you and building you up to be a person that can navigate better than that person who's been handed that silver platter. Because the thing is that when my mom always taught me back when I was younger, it was a song by, I can't remember the young lady's name, but it was always talking about the child that has his own. That's when my mother always dedicated that song to me, the child that has his own. Because once you know how to do it, and once you get to that point where you have it already internally, nobody can take it away from you. And that means that if you get stripped away from you and you fail, you always can come back because you knew what it was to take to get to that position. When somebody gives you something put on a silver platter. You didn't know how to get to that point. It was just given to you. So when you fail, you don't know what it took to get you to that point. So anyway, my point is something that I wanted to give that was tangible. The tangible thing that I wanted to give you was when I was younger, we used to do this thing called canvassing. Canvassing is where you go out and you have to, they give you some instructions or whatever, and you go and you're told to go knock on doors, pass out flyers or whatever. It's like one of these operational things of putting the boots on the ground, just like, with the voting and stuff, people going to people's houses and trying to knock on their houses and try to figure out who they're voting for, or influencing them, inspiring, trying to convince them to vote for their candidate. Anyway, so we used to do canvassing. It's to go out there with my cousins out on Long Island. We would go to a headquarters. They'll put us in the headquarters and they'll have us all sitting there, and then they'll give us all these instructions of what we need to do, what places we want to hit. And then they'll take us out in these vans, and then they put us out in these vans, and we go to the vans and they drop us off at the corner. And normally they'll tell you, all right, you basically have these blocks that you have to hit, these streets that you have to hit. So normally it'll be one person on one side of the street, the other person on the other side of the street. So that way you're being able to knock out, more streets instead of one person trying to do both sides. Now, sometimes you do get stuck, but anyway, whatever. I'm getting on a tangent. I'm getting off on the subject. So we would go there, and what the objective was is that we needed to go to these places because the organization we were working for was like an environmental organization, and we had to go knock on these doors, and we had to try to convince these people to give us donations. Now, they don't know us from nowhere. We just had a script, and we would read out the script and talk about, blah, 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 about the environment. I think it was called NYPIRG or something like that, New York, something private, protection and environment, whatever. So we would have to go to these houses, knock on these doors. Nobody knows you from nowhere. You kind of had a little clip, whatever, with your name on it or that organization. And you would have to spill your script out, and you would try to convince these people to donate to you. Now, for one, you always had multiple obstacles. Folks don't know you from nowhere. You talking about you asking for money. They don't really know the organization. They're not familiar with the organization. And we were in some areas that were like the suburbs. And not to mention, you look at my color, and so we're in the suburbs of wealthy or middle-class white folks. So you got somebody who's coming looking like me, coming up to your door, talk about looking for money. But what it taught us, and this is the point that I'm talking about, that trying to give you all something tangible, what it taught us was the main thing that most men can't deal with today on every level. They can't deal with rejection. And what this instilled in us was, can you fight past the rejection in order to accomplish the goal, which is to try to get donations? And now we also had a competition back with the people back at headquarters of who can bring the amount of donations, the most amount of donations back, and then you would win prizes or whatever. So when we knocked on these doors and these people opened up the doors, you had to put on this, this serious presentation to convince people that they were going to give you some money. And based off your personality, based off your what you were displaying, and how your script, or how you spoke on your script, and how confident you stood up on your script, it was either they were going to give you a donation or they were going to slam the door on your face. And now what that caused you to do was that caused you to get into a different mode, because you were like, okay, you know what, listen, there's a competition back at the headquarters, and I got to try to get as much donations as I can. And so it gave you that motivation to do what you needed to do to try to get these donations. Yes, it was hard, people slamming on the door. Some people wouldn't even open up the door. But that rejection is what built you. Because the more and more you got rejected, and it's a numbers game, the more and more you got rejected, it was going to be that one person who maybe opened up the door, at least listened to you. Maybe they didn't give you no money, but they listened to you. And then what did that do? That added an extra little notch of confidence to you. And then you go to the next one. And then if all you needed to do was get that one person who was going to give you that money. And once that one person gave you that money, now your chest started getting bigger. Then you started to swell up and you started to show like, you know what, I'm king of the world right now because I just got this one person to give me money. And depending on how much money they gave you, that even more entitled, that more gave you motivation to say, you know what, let me go see if I can get more. And it just was a momentum thing. Now you're pushing with this confidence. Now you're going to these places and it only takes one. Yes, you're going to get rejected. You may get rejected 1,000 times, but it only takes one opportunity, one person to say yes, one female to look your way and say, hey, I'm going to give you your number. That's where the confidence comes from. So I challenge the men, movement of men right here, right? I challenge the men. If you've never done any canvassing, whatever it is, whatever organization is out there, there's plenty of organizations out there that have volunteer work that you could cold call. The other thing is cold calling, same exact thing. You're calling people and you're trying to convince them over the phone. They don't know who you are. You're trying to convince them over the phone that they should listen to you. You're going to get rejected 900 times, but it may be that 1, 2, 3 person or whatever. And when you get that person who then accepts your call and accepts what you're offering, that's when you start adding on those notches of confidence. It's just like riding a bike. You know, you get on a bike, got training wheels, and you riding it, and you falling all over the place. You're falling all over the place. And then one time you start to stabilize it just a little bit. And then all of a sudden, once you stabilize it a little bit, all of a sudden, you start feeling like the training wheels aren't there. And sometimes you don't even know the training wheels are not there. And then you start going, and then it's the momentum. And then now you got the momentum, and now you got the confidence to ride that bike without the training wheels. It's the same exact thing with your confidence. You got to start building up these notches, putting these notches on your chest so that you know that you've got the ability to do something. And then that translates into everything else that you do, because the more that you've gotten rejected, the more that you're able to accomplish and start to see that you can make certain things happen with whatever it is that you're doing. Now, when you get that confidence, the other rejections are not going to hurt you. There's billions of women on this earth. I don't even understand what all these guys doing the stuff that they're doing, all this anger and all this garbage. There's billions of women on this earth. Yeah, you may get rejected by a whole bunch of women in your city or your area, but it only takes 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever. And once you get that, then you start getting the knack of, okay, this is what I got to do to approach another young lady. Same thing with a job. You may put out a whole bunch of things. It's a numbers game, bunch of jobs. But the difference is that if you build up that confidence, you'll be able to talk to these people a little bit different, to where you can convince them that you're the right candidate. Yeah, it's a long road. Yeah, it's slow. Yeah, it may be boring, but like I said, you got to get those notches. The only way you can get those notches is that you got to get some experience, somehow, some way to get experience of dealing with rejection. So I challenge you all, go to a canvassing spot. There's plenty of places out here that are looking for folks to be able to cold call or maybe knock on doors. Be safe, because you know this day and age, you know how things can go. But I challenge you all to do some cold calling, to do some canvassing, just to get a little bit of that notch, so that to get some notches underneath your belt. Feel that rejection. Feel it over and over and over again until it starts till you start getting a little bit of, you get 1 or 2 people that give you a little bit of movement, give you a little bit of play. You know, when they give you that play, now you can build on that momentum, and then it should be easier, and the rejection becomes where it's not no big deal anymore. It's going to be like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. And then you figure out ways of how to convince people out of the rejection. You know what I'm saying? When you get swift and you get real good, You can convince people out of rejection. They may reject you right then and there, and you could say certain things and boom, pull it out of them, be like, oh, and they'll be like, you know what? Yeah, I was going to go and I wasn't going to go with it, but now, I'm going to go with it. It happens to you all the time when you deal with salespeople. Salespeople do that all the time. So anyway, I'm rambling. That's my tangible action for you. Go and look at some canvassing, some cold calling, build up the rejection. Go through the rejection and see if you can get over that hump of being able to get some acceptance. And when you get that acceptance, keep on going, keep on building, get to a point to where it feels natural. And then when it feels natural, then we know we're working with something. All right? So on that note, remember, movement of men, we're going to get this right. We're going to get you boys right, man. All positive stuff, man. We got to set this world back straight, man. None of this nonsense with all this manosphere and all this other garbage that's out here. Nah, man, that's not good for our kids, not good for the women. It's not good for this earth. Men, gotta be men. All right? I'm gonna catch you on the next note. Peace out.